Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to the Weekend Wellness Hour show. Today, we are going to be talking with a naturopath over in Canada who has a lot of expertise in the weight loss field and how you can do that looking at your body type. I want to thank you, Sue-Anne. Thank you so much for joining us today on your Saturday, your day off. So really appreciate your time here today.
Thank you, Amy. Really happy to be here.
It's wonderful. How did you get into this field and kind of what is your journey to get to this point where you have this methodology?
Right. So I guess it really started with yoga. Yoga was my big catalyst for change. Up until that point, I might say, a little bit lost and searching for answers in the wrong kinds of places. And then when I finally started practicing yoga, I changed my diet to a really healthy diet and started getting interested in everything about healing and meditation and spirituality. And over the years, that kind of segued into becoming a naturopath. My passion had been nutrition, healthy eating, healthy lifestyle since 1990 with my first yoga class. So I started training in 2006 to be a naturopath. And the first thing that we learned was all about the 4 different body types. And I found it fascinating. I knew what my body type was. Just listening to the description was really easy. And the transformation that I went through by making the changes to my diet, eating right for my body type, the right foods at the right time, was off the charts. So I'm like, okay, this is a no-brainer. I'm eating this way for the rest of my life, and I want to tell everybody how to do this as well.
Isn't that funny? When you fall onto something that really helps transform people, you just want to go with it and really share it with people. So I'm glad that you stumbled on that. Now, is Bodytypology, which is your website and kind of the name, is that a name that you've created for this type of weight loss program?
Yeah, exactly. It originally came, it's been around a long time. There was a Dr. Abravanel that wrote a book in the 1980s about the 4 body types and 40 body types for women, 3 body types for men. But in the 80s, he didn't have as much knowledge as we have now with healthy eating. So one of my naturopath teachers, said, wow, this makes so much sense, but let's update it. And instead of making it like a strict diet, let's make it into a healthy diet that people can follow long term. So, and then, throwing names around with a friend, she came up with Bodytypology. I'm like, oh, that's great. Okay. So I kind of put together my signature program with all the things that I learned on my journey and including the body type diet into, the program I do with my clients.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Now, can we touch on a little bit about what are the 4 or 5 body types, or 4 body for women and 3 body types for men? Can you kind of go in through those?
Sure. Yeah. So we'll start with women. So the gonad body type, that has to do with the ovaries for women only.
Okay.
And usually that's known as the pear-shaped. However, we have to be careful because we can't determine a person's body type by shape alone. I have, little drawings and pictures and people try and figure it out, but it's so much more than that alone. The gonad body type, that's usually the motherly, caregiving type of woman. She loves to take care of others. She might be a nurse or a psychologist or a massage therapist. She usually loves having kids and taking care of her kids, sometimes to the detriment of self. So she needs to learn how to take care of herself as well. The second type could be the adrenal body type. They're often the bigger upper body, broad shoulders, large chest, think kind of Oprah's build. And they're a very strong type. They're very determined. I think of Oprah's character, right? A go-getter, very social, very enjoys being around people. They're very hardworking. They can be quite stubborn sometimes. They usually laugh when I say that. And so that's adrenal body type. And then third could be the thyroid body type. They tend to be more tall and thin, so they can have longer limbs. If they gain weight, it's often around the middle, like a spare tire. They can be morning type, so jump out of bed, high energy in the morning. They have to be aware of their up and down energy and up and down mood swings, and be careful of sugar cravings that can send them on that roller coaster, which was me. So, and then finally, the pituitary type is a type that tends to gain weight a little bit all over the body, so more baby fat. They are more in their heads. They're very like mathematician, very cerebral, and they have to be aware. Usually they love dairy, which can create excess mucus in the body. So that can hinder the reproductive system, because each of the body types has ailments that it's more prone to.
Oh, okay. And so when you're looking at, or you're trying to figure out your body type, and you're kind of going with the categories that you just discussed, I listen to that and I say, okay, well, I have a little bit of that, a little bit of that. How do you determine what is your predominant body type, or can you be more than one?
Yeah, usually it's no, you're only one to begin with. And when I meet with my clients, I have a lot of description on my website. So some people just reading the description can figure out their body type. The description is quite lengthy, but I look at mostly energy levels, food cravings, food preferences, ailments that they're more prone to. As I said, personality is huge. So all the different things where they tend to gain weight also. So all the different things kind of combined. There's some key questions for some also that can determine the types.
Okay. And that's wonderful. And so now when you help someone with changing their diet plan and what they're eating, is it reflective to the body type because of the gland that's predominant? Is that why they're eating a certain way, or is it just because of just general preferences?
Yeah, exactly. It has to do with the gland in question. So we all have a dominant gland that determines our body type, and that gland usually is working harder than the others, and the others are trying to catch up. So that creates this imbalance. And when we eat the right foods at the right time for our body type, the dominant gland calms down and the weaker glands get stronger. And that's what creates this balance of feeling better. Appetite is kept in check. Cravings go down. You just feel good eating the right foods for your type.
Okay. That sounds amazing. Sorry. So what are some of the foods that each of those body types, something general you can give like some suggestions, or is that kind of part of your program where people need to go step by step?
Yeah, in general, there are generalities for some of each of the body types for sure, foods that are not so good for them, and foods maybe to focus on. I just want to say offside, my internet has been a little fuzzy, so if things drop off, hopefully everything will be fine, but just warning the people that are watching in advance. So for say let's see, as I said, mentioned for the pituitary type, so less dairy for them for sure. For myself, I'm a thyroid type. Often we probably don't want to hear this, but the foods that we most love can be the ones that are not so good for us. So for myself, I used to crave a lot of sweets and carbs. The thyroid type can be attracted to stimulants, so coffee and tea and chocolate, because they want that spike of energy. And when they do that, they're on the roller coaster. So having more protein will keep them more balanced all day long and not have that spike of the sugars. Sugars are not good for them. The adrenal body type, it could be more the salty and fatty foods need to be reduced to help them. And the gonad type, they also can go towards like cheesy, heavy foods, and it depends on which time of the day also. So for a gonad type, the pear-shaped, often they say, I love peanut butter and toast for breakfast, but their metabolism is really slow in the morning. So they need something really small and light that, to keep their metabolism feeling better. And the peanut butter is kind of heavy for them and for their liver. So that could be keeping the weight on and keeping them feeling sluggish in the morning. And when they switch that to something lighter, like just a fruit, they're like, oh, I feel good. And I'm actually not even hungry right till lunch.
That's impressive. And so when you determine your gland that's dominant, is that consistent throughout the rest of your life, or does that change?
It's rare that it changes. It can, is a great question. Sometimes a woman, when they go through pregnancy and give birth, they'll say, oh my God, I feel like completely different. I'm not the same person at all anymore. And they might have changed their body type through that. But generally, our body type is determined really around puberty, and then it stays the same for the rest of our life. Yeah.
Okay. And do you see an impact on body type and sleep? And I know it's something I kind of throwing out of left field, but I'm just curious because a lot of times sleep affects our cravings and how much we eat. So I was curious if there's an interplay between your body type, your eating plan, and then sleep, if you see anything.
Yeah, there's one thing for sure. The gonad body type or pear-shaped body type, they need more sleep than any of the other body types. Okay. So I always tell them that. I had one woman who was 71 who said, oh, I've always felt guilty for sleeping so much. I'm like, no, you need a lot of sleep. The adrenal body type, as I said, they're super strong, robust. They might need less sleep than someone else, but quality of sleep, I find it's more emotional, right? It's more our fears, our insecurities, our stress that often is the cause of insomnia.
Okay. And when I know even with eating too, so I'm pretty active, and a lot of times when I go out and I do a long hike, did a long hike this morning, and I didn't need any food. A lot of times there's this perception where we need more food than we think. And I can imagine that plays into it as well, for especially when you're working with people in your world of weight loss reduction.
Yes, for sure. Even myself, I always told myself I need a snack at nighttime. That helps me sleep better. And I think I was more just lonely. And now that I've, with a partner that I love, I'm like, oh, actually, I don't need a snack at night. The gonad body type needs very, very small amounts of food, and they're fine. Some of them, it's like, oh, I've been eating these bigger portions and I didn't really need that. I'm fine with a smaller portion. So they learn what works.
Yeah. And we get into the habits, and like you said, the emotional component of everything really affects us with our weight loss. And I know you do something else called RTT, rapid transformational therapy. Do you use this as a conjunction to help with the emotional part of eating?
Yes, 100%. I was, searching for quite a while. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. I was just saying, can you go into that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I knew that I had like the best healthy eating plan, but then I was, if I don't help my clients heal any emotional trauma, any reason behind the emotional eating, the stress eating, then long-term success might not happen. So when I discovered, a friend referred me to this training called RTT with Marissa Peer, who comes from England. And yes, this is exactly what I need. So I did the training last year, and it's such a powerful tool to really help my clients. We do a whole process to bring them into a really relaxed state, and go back and find things that happened. They might have been 8 years old or 10 years old or younger. And often they'll say, oh my God, I haven't thought of that, in years. I had no idea that was still affecting me now, and usually triggering them to do the emotional eating or to feel the insecurities that cause them to eat, or whatever it is that's there. And so there's a whole process, as I said, where we help them release that, reframe it. Like, you're not 8 years old anymore. You don't need to be triggered by that anymore. We can let go of that completely using really strong affirmations. And then at the end of the session, I make them a recording, which they then listen to. It's about 15 minutes, and they listen to that for at least 3 weeks, every single day. So one of my clients put it as, it's like you took this negative black wire out of my brain and plugged in a white positive one. So really? I thought that was a good way of wording it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when someone wants to come work with you and they're working through weight loss, does everyone start with RTT before you start changing the diet? or how do you negotiate that?
Yeah, no, well, usually we start with the diet, we give them their plan, we get them going. And then if they're open to doing an RTT session, we'll do 2 or 3 sessions. Usually I work with clients from 3 to 6 months. So we'll add those in over the weeks as we go forward. And yeah, for sure, some say, no, that's fine. I'm okay. Not everyone is wanting to do that. There can be a lot of tears. There can be a lot of emotion that comes up during the session. Others usually are quite blown away by how powerful a process it is.
That's wonderful. I had heard of Marissa Peer on a couple different podcasts a couple of years ago, and she's phenomenal. So I have never met someone who does RTT, so I'm very excited to now have someone who does that and can refer people to. So this is wonderful. But so when someone comes to you and they're looking to lose maybe 10 pounds or 50 pounds, does it all look the same in terms of their body type eating plan? Or if someone wants to lose, a large amount of weight like that, is it a different process?
No, I would say it's basically the same process, because my goal with my clients is really to teach them a healthy way of eating that they can sustain long-term for the rest of their life. So it's not at all about the usual fad diet where we do this strict, rigid thing for a certain amount of time, and then whoops, after a while, we revert back to our old habits. I mean, I love bumping into clients years later and them saying, oh, I'm still eating my healthy kamut cereal, and I'm, doing these things and maintaining my weight. So yeah, whether they need to lose a small amount or a big amount, I would say the similar process. I'm there to encourage, to hold them accountable, to cheer them on. Usually we're really hard on ourselves. So some of them like, you're so nice. I'm like, yes, well, we're hard enough on ourselves. I'm here to support you. And I mean, I think weight loss is also a lot about self-love, self-care, self-worth. So helping them instill that helps them have long-term success.
Yeah.
And
I imagine there's some kind of mindset changes that need to happen as well. Sometimes we're used to sitting down, having a plate a certain size, and then, like you said, even the snack at night, you're just so used to that, it's hard to shift out of that.
Yes.
Are there specific strategies you have to help people change their mindset?
Yeah, well, that's a lot with the RTT and just a lot with my coaching that I've kind of put together my process over the years. So I have them write out their vision at the beginning. So they have a clear vision of where they want to be 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 12 months from now. Have them do exercises to instill more self-worth and self-love. Using the RTT. And I tell them from the beginning, thoughts is about 99% of what we do, because it's our thoughts that control what we eat, whether we choose to exercise or not. So for sure, there's a lot of coaching around that.
That's wonderful. And so when someone is looking at their body type and wants to change and they're starting to learn their body type, a lot of times we get overwhelmed when we need to make a rapid change or a very large change in our life. How, with each body type, are there some of the more instrumental fundamentals for that body type that you say, okay, first you're going to start here. For this body type, you're not going to eat in the mornings, but maybe we'll have you eat at 10 or 11. Is there kind of some fundamentals and then other additional things that they can do? Or they just jump in?
They jump in, they get their plan. But then what I do with my clients is I say, I have them choose their own goals. And I make sure that they're, SMART goals, if you're familiar with the specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound. So if they say, week 1, this week I want to exercise more and I want to eat healthier. No, let's make that into, something more specific. This week, I'm going to have maximum 2 deviations. I don't like to call them cheats. We call them deviations, more positive. And I'm going to walk 4 times for 30 minutes. So, but they choose their goals. They choose, usually diet and exercise. I also have lifestyle, which is working with mindset. or supplements and vitamins. Everyone is different. Some people I might suggest a simple liver detox if I find that the liver might be really congested or something like that. So while there's the parameters of the program and each body type has its own specific plan, I really work with the client where they're at.
Nice.
And try to, if they say I'm a small goal, well, can we stretch that a little bit, not to push them too far out of their comfort zone, but keep it moving forward.
Okay. Oh, that's wonderful. What about certain foods? Are certain foods across the board a no-no in all the experience you've had with weight loss, like gluten or anything? Is there certain that's a no?
Yeah, for sure. The more they reduce the processed packaged foods and go back to the real whole foods in their most natural state possible, that's my main plan for everybody. Yeah, so many people. I work with a lot of clients around the world. And some people are just used to processed packaged food. Well, it said healthy on the label. I'm like, no, let's get more, half your plate vegetables. You want your protein, you want your good quality carbs. I'm a really big advocate of getting in good carbs like brown rice, quinoa, barley, sweet potatoes, because a lot of people think they're going to gain weight with that, but no, we don't. And they fill us up a long time, that lasts a lot longer. We stay satisfied a lot longer with those kind of healthy carbs. So foods to avoid, the unhealthy fats for sure. And usually the processed packaged foods contain these unhealthy fats. Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious about that. And kind of what are your thoughts on some of the various diets out there, like keto, paleo, vegan, pescatarian? Do you have any thoughts on all of that?
That's a lot of different diets and a lot of different opinions. Yes. So I think number one, everyone has to find what works for them. For some people, they'll thrive on a vegetarian or vegan diet. And for some body types, that's perfect for them. Some people feel good doing a very clean keto. There are so many different variations, even of keto, right? There's like a lot of bacon and fatty foods and all that, which I don't think is very healthy. So for sure, I'm not going to necessarily put other diets down. I think it totally depends on each person. Myself, I was vegetarian for 16 years. I think a plant-based diet is one of the healthiest diets that we can eat. However, for my body type, I found, my teacher's like, you need more protein. And I was like, there's no way, I'm not eating any animal products. I was a yoga teacher and I was super stubborn. And after a while, I decided, okay, let's try eating a little bit of organic chicken and some organic eggs. And that helped me get a little bit more protein and be more balanced. So for each person, they have to find what really works for them, how they feel good so that they're satisfied, they're not hungry in between meals, they feel balanced.
Yeah, that's incredible. And you even had a couple different, you said hypoglycemia and eczema that you had that you kind of shifted out of. Was that the ability to shift out of that? Was that a result of doing the body type diet, or was that when you put back in some organic chicken and eggs?
I wouldn't say, well, partly adding in the protein, but not so much. I think it was just a global thing of everything I was implementing when I started taking my classes to be a naturopath. For one thing, my body was way overly acidic because I do pH testing. And mine was like off the charts. So I needed to learn how to better reduce my stress. I needed to incorporate way more dark leafy greens, reduce the carbs that I was eating and balancing my pH. I think that really helped for me to not let go of the eczema that I'd had for 20 years. The hypoglycemia was, actually that was for sure adding in more protein and keeping myself more balanced. So just increasing my energy. It was like all the things I was doing. I also took some supplements to help reduce the acidity and nourish my body. I was lacking in B12. I hadn't taken that being vegetarian for a long time. So I took some B12 and some iron. So there was a lot of different components going into transform my health. I was white as a ghost when I first started my classes. That's like the acidity, and I was just probably lacking in the iron and B12. And after a while, I started having color in my cheeks.
Oh,
And I'd look in the mirror and go, oh my God, I have color in my cheeks. Yeah.
that's really neat. Oh, that's wonderful. And I'm curious too. So you made these changes, and did you do some testing to find out all of this, or is this something that you saw someone else, and or is this training that you got as a naturopath that you can now help other people with for like looking at acidity and that?
Yeah, there's not very many tests. Really, I go a lot with the symptoms. After doing this for so many years, I see, the similar symptoms, and it's always about getting to the cause of what's going on, like asking a ton of questions of when did this start, what was going on, what was happening emotionally, physically, your stress and all of that. So yeah, like a lot of people have candida, if you're aware of candida, overabundance of yeast in the body. So I've seen like so many people that have that have no clue, but the symptoms across the board are usually the same. A lot of the big red flags are low energy, just a lot of bloating and gas and feeling yucky, sweet cravings off the charts. And like when I see all these symptoms and have taken antibiotics repeatedly, then I'm like, oh, red flagged. So I start asking all the questions, and they're like, yes, I have that. Yes. I'm like, oh, candida could be there. Yeah. So it's really, all the in-depth questioning that I do to determine what's going on.
Yeah, and so now for a condition like candida, if you are going to address that and get your biome back to correct nutrition and all that, is it a different plan based on your body type?
Yes, it's a completely different way of eating. So I usually leave it up to the client. Do you want to do the candida cure right now? It's a good 3.5 months, in my opinion, of the strict diet to get rid of it and taking the supplements to kill off the candida. Or do you want to jump into your body type plan first? So because candida is pretty rigid diet to be able to make sure that it's gone away completely. So I offer them a choice of what they're ready to do.
Okay. So maybe step 1 and then step 2 to really help them out. So have you seen a lot of changes in people's nutrition and health with the pandemic and being more closed off? And over this past year, there's a lot more mental health concerns, depression, lack of connection, isolation.
For sure, I'd say it's harder. A lot of clients said that they gained more weight during the pandemic. On the one hand, it might be a bit easier because there's less get-togethers and parties, and that's usually where there's excess of alcohol and fewer outings to restaurants, which is hard for a lot of people to control themselves when they're in those situations. But I think, by far it's harder, like the emotional, being isolated and doing more emotional eating at night. And that's come up during the pandemic for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. This is wonderful. And you had mentioned you work with people all over the world. So is this done through Zoom with you?
Right. Yes, I have. I had my office in Montreal and I had it there, sitting there throughout all of COVID, and recently finished my lease and thought, okay, I'm just going to work with Zoom from now on, because I've been working with Zoom with people in Europe and US and across Canada for quite a few years. So now I'm just doing everything by Zoom. Even RTT, people ask, really, you can do that by Zoom? And it works perfectly well.
Wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. It's great. And how can people reach you?
So my website is easy to find, bodytypology.com. You can find that on Facebook and Instagram under the same name. So there's you can find it easily through there.
That's wonderful. And any last suggestions that you'd like to talk about or go over for people, listeners?
Last suggestions. I would say, as I was saying before, always find the plan that works well for you, that you feel good doing. People say, what kind of exercise should I do? Like, the best kind of exercise is the one that you love and that you will do.
Yeah.
And the same with our healthy eating plan. Try to stick to foods, eating them in their most natural state possible, and finding a balance that works for you. One thing that I'm a really big advocate of is nourishing our body with healthy food at lunch and dinner, adding, in the carbs, the vegetables, or protein, because then you won't be looking for snacks in between the meals. Usually it's the unhealthy snacks that puts the pounds on for those that want to lose the weight. So have a really good lunch would be my little tip of the day.
I agree, because especially if you have just a really small or bad lunch, then you have that crash mid-afternoon. So I could see why having a great lunch, good, solid, healthy one, can keep you solid until dinner.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
well, I really appreciate your time today, Sue-Anne. Thank you. And the internet held up for us. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I know it can be frustrating, especially since we're in this digital world nowadays.
Yes, thanks so much for having me, Amy. It's been a pleasure.
Wonderful. And thank you all for joining us today. Have a great rest of your weekend. Please check out Sue-Anne's website, sign up for her program, get in and find out your body type so you can start to change the way you eat and get more energy out of it and live a healthier life. So thank you all for joining us today. Take care. Bye now.